So let's start off with the recall election. Gavin Newsom, won in a landslide. I believe he got 67% of the votes. And Larry Elder only got 2.5 million votes, which was about, I think, 35%. I'm not 100% sure, but I know Gavin Newsom just won in a landslide. What was a little weird to me was Kevin Paffrath, this YouTuber, right, who makes videos on real estate and how he has a really inspirational story. Props to him. And he just ran for governor and he ended up being in third place. So he actually got more than 500,000 votes. He got more votes than Caitlyn Jenner, John Cox, and he was just behind Larry Elder. I think he beat Larry Elder in San Francisco County. I think that's accurate. But yeah, the point is he did better than a lot of other people expected. And he said he's going to run. He's contemplating about it next year, but he thinks he's going to run in 2026 when it's a clean slate. And he's a Democrat, so he has a good chance, right, of winning. But yeah, so what do you guys think about the recall election? I mean, do you think the whole premise of the recall election was that Gavin Newsom was not doing, or the people who were proponents of the recall were saying Gavin Newsom has not done an adequate job of leading California and we need change? So do you agree with that premise that he wasn't doing a good job and that California was just not doing good under his leadership?
So what I think happened is I don't think Newsom did a good job during the pandemic. And I think as soon as the recall, talks of the recall started happening, he kind of froze, oh, I got to do something now. And he got a little scared and he started doing things right. And so post recalls talks, I'll call it, I think he started doing things right. But I don't think he was trying to do things right from the good of his heart, I guess. I think he's doing things right in fear that he's going to lose his prestige and his honor. And being, the incumbent, it's extremely difficult to get voted out of. But with that said, I want to talk about Kevin a little bit. So shout out his handle @MeetKevin on YouTube. And if you know about us, I hope you know about him. And so Meet Kevin, he's a trip. So he started off as a real estate agent, kind of like myself, but in residential. And so he did houses and such. And I think the interesting thing about Meet Kevin is he gained, I don't want to say it's definitely not an overnight success, but in terms of success, how long success takes, it was relatively quick. So he became like a multi-millionaire within a span of, I want to say, less than 10 years. And, that's quite wild. So what him and his wife did, they decided to become like a power team kind of. And what they did was they kind of saved until they were able to afford, I think the first project was a duplex. And they bought a duplex. And then what they did is they cash flowed it out. And so they got renters and tenants and they cash flowed it out. And he continued being a real estate agent and got more. And then they eventually leveraged their equity inside that property and they got more. And so now what he has is like multi-million-dollar equity in 15 properties, and such are apartment buildings. And that's really where the money's at. But regardless, the thing I think is so interesting about him is that he came from a place of not poverty, but he definitely wasn't well off, right? And he worked his butt off to get to a point where he can be this guy that makes 13 YouTube videos a day and makes a lot of cash, not only from his YouTube, but from his rental properties. And so he understands both sides. He understands the people that are making a lot of money, and that he also understands the people that aren't making so much money. And so his YouTube video that kind of presented that he's going to run for governor, he talked about what his plans were, and he talked about why he was going to make those decisions happen, right? And that's the interesting part to me, because he didn't agree that taxes should be all all nuts because of how the liberals want it, and such as that. And that's cool to me. But he also mentioned that he was going to do X, Y, and Z to make sure that taxes are still sufficient for our infrastructure. And they were actually extremely plausible, rather than just taxing the wealthy and eat the rich and, all these types of, I want to say political slurs, because I don't agree with them at all. And I think that was the interesting part, that he didn't have to cohere to what the liberals wanted in order to get a lot of traction.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the reasons why he got I just checked the updated vote count, and he got about 587,000 votes, so almost 600,000 votes. And I think one of the reasons why is that, like you said, he ran a platform on innovative ideas, and voters were genuinely looking for it. And I think he did a really effective job. Because here's the thing: it's one thing to have how many subscribers does he have? It's one thing to have 1.7 million subscribers. It's another to get 600,000 votes, like actual votes, and that's like, even though it doesn't sound like a lot, that's really impressive that he, like beat out big names like John Cox, who was a Republican nominee for governor in the past election. And so I think that's impressive. I think, people were saying it's kind of a joke. He's doing it for publicity, but if you actually go on his campaign website, some of the topics and issues that he talks about are, they are, like I was saying, they are like innovative ideas. But my only thing is, he has so many assets, like so many stock holdings, crypto assets. I think, and I don't think a lot of people asked him about this, but I would ask him, what do you plan on doing, man? Because that's his life. That's all he does. And so as governor, in my opinion, you should not, be focusing on your portfolio. You should just put it in a blind trust. Or in my opinion, people who are in power should just not have any, they should not like have individual stock holdings. Maybe they can have the S&P 500 index or NASDAQ, some of the like larger indexes, but I don't think, I think it clouds your judgment, because Kevin knows his portfolio so well that every single decision he makes, he could probably break it down, like how it would negatively or positively affect the stock. You know what I mean? So
yeah, it's just a conflict of interest, in my opinion. But I mean, I would say like, I'm actually excited to see more politicians that come from, being not rich, not wealthy, not like, Donald Trump, for example, where you come from a family of wealth. So I'm actually really excited and happy to see, like, even though he only got 600,000 votes, at least like that's pretty good for someone who has, just like Donald Trump wasn't in politics before, just based on his influence. But obviously he doesn't come from wealth and power. He comes from pretty much like he built himself up. So I'm excited to see that. I'm excited to see more politicians like that in the future.
Yeah, he's a true self-starter for sure. In terms of the recall election as a whole, though, do you guys think it was worth it to have this recall election? Because remember, we're having another governor election next year in 2022 in the midterms. So, but do you guys think the cost? Because guess how much this recall election cost us? Take a guess. Take a guess.
10 million. Actually, no, wait, that's too less. I think 10 million, maybe 50 million.
Okay, Matt, what about you? Take a guess.
I'd have to say like 15.
Guys, $300 million. 300. About
Okay,
300.
So what are the external, like, what's the monetary about what's going into it?
So the cost of paying poll workers, you have to like rent out places for like polling centers. You have to obviously like the mail-in ballots. Also, you have to put up like, mail-in postcard boxes so people can mail stuff. Again, like staffing is a big part of it, just like paying poll workers. Again, that's not all of it. I'm not elected. What's that?
300 million?
But hey, no, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not 100% sure about the exact cost, but from what I am thinking, poll workers definitely a little bit it costs, because you need thousands of poll workers across the state. Then, like I said, renting out these polling centers, because the state, I'm pretty sure, has to pay. Like, so for instance, I voted in a mosque nearby. They were a polling center, so I had to go there to vote. I'm pretty sure the state's paying them, right, to be a voting center. I'm sure some organizations volunteer, but yeah, I don't. But the total cost of it was $300 million. So it was a waste of money, because he won in a landslide, and we're having an election literally next year in 12 months.
So just a quick point. So Matt made a point. He said I didn't agree with what Gavin Newsom did in the pandemic, like the decisions he made, and I would have to agree with that. But I would also say in every like populated state, like Miami, New York. I mean, not Miami, Florida, New York. I don't think anybody did a good job in the pandemic. Like, name me one governor that did a really good job in the pandemic that's in like a populated state.
The New Jersey governor, I think, did pretty well.
I mean, I wouldn't consider New Jersey like a really populated state. I meant like, let's say Texas,
man, but
New York, Florida. That's what.
But regardless, like if they did a good job, they did a good job. That's the thing.
But his whole argument, I think Jenish is saying, is like a big state. Like he's comparing California to those bigger states. So
yeah, exactly. I like Texas and Florida and New York, if that kind of makes sense. Like nobody did a good job. That's what I'm trying to say in terms of the pandemic. I mean. But yeah, so I mean, yeah, that's just my point. Like, if you're just gonna consider the pandemic, I mean, maybe there's other problems that you're considering that, oh, okay, maybe Gavin Newsom's not doing a good job regarding this, but in just terms of the pandemic, that's what I see. And I mean, I don't know. I think the whole recall election was primarily due to Republicans. Is that correct? Or primarily due to the,
Yeah, that's
Republicans
correct.
complaining, right? And we already know that California is a heavy blue state. Like, I mean, I could have probably predicted the results of this recall election before it even happened. Like, it was gonna be Democratic. So I mean, if this recall election was just due to Republicans complaining, I mean, I mean, I could have predicted the results.
But I have a question for Matt. So you said so Matt, you told me, right? You voted no to recall. So, but you said that you didn't agree with everything Gavin did. Why did you vote no? I just want to help us break down why you voted no in the recall.
Yeah, for sure. I think so. Gavin, I don't think he's always done a bad job as governor, but I think when he was under pressure, and I think pressure. So okay, I'll say something, or no, I won't say that. But I think what makes a good leader is that they're able to handle, strenuous times under pressure. And obviously, during the pandemic, that was extremely pressurized. So not only did he, kind of, I think he really flopped in terms of how he treated the stay-at-home order. I think he flopped at how he decided to deal with the homeless situation during the stay-at-home order, and how he dealt with individual people and their belief system with the pandemic, right?
Also, just a quick side point. Also, how he dealt with reopening stuff. Like,
Exactly. So
it was
that was
just
kind of
horrible. Yeah.
That was kind of part of the stay-at-home thing I was talking about. Um, okay, yeah. So first off, with the whole stay-at-home thing, it's understandable that we had to stay at home, like no issue there at all, right? But it created a panic effect. Like people were literally fighting over toilet paper. Like that's not okay. That's not what a leader should like kind of facilitate. The leader should facilitate, hey, this is what's happening, and like this is how we should take it, and this is maybe how you should deal with it, right? And then like if people freak out still, then you kind of facilitate it more, and you're not taking like complete control over them, but you're talking to them as a leader. And in terms of like the reopening, he reopened, in the beginning of summer, where everybody thought that I believe Fauci was saying how in the summer that things will die off. And unfortunately, everybody opened up and things didn't die off. And we actually hit a way stronger wave towards October-ish, right? September, October-ish. And so that definitely wasn't ideal. But you know what happened? And then you're talking about the homeless situation. Okay, first off, no, I don't. There's no discrimination against the homeless, right? But the whole issue of them kind of taking over our beaches, taking over the beaches, taking over, the boardwalks. I'm in real estate, right? And I go around these industrial buildings, and these are people's businesses, right? This is where they go to thrive, to make money, to support our e-commerce business and our e-commerce ecosystem. That's what I meant to say. And these business owners and these employees are going in, and all across their entire curbs, they're all the the broken vans, the broken motorhomes. And in my opinion, that's not okay. Like if I'm a business owner, I'm going into my 3PL company and saying like, this is what I'm trying to move forward, I'm trying to grow my business. Like I want to be like invigorated, I want to like keep wanting to move forward. But when you see homeless like outside of your multi-million dollar business, it's like, come on. I think that they're handling the situation poorly. They're not. I don't want to get too much into the homeless thing because it's very divisive. But I don't think he handled that well at all. And going back to being under pressure, so then he was faced under more pressure, right? When recall talks started happening, and he decided to start being a better leader. And that's not okay to me either. It shouldn't happen after people are talking about why you're being bad. It should happen when you think the people need you the most. And when we needed him the most, he was just kind of, I'll say lollygagging and just, doing his thing. And so I just don't think he's the person that we need.
But so your logic is that he wasn't doing a good job before the recall, but after the recall, he adjusted and became like more proactive. And because he did an adequate job at that, you said no, and you didn't really like anybody else or you didn't think the Republicans had a chance, right, to beat him?
I didn't think the Republicans had any chance to beat him.
Right.
I didn't think Kevin Paffrath had a chance to beat him, even though I voted for him. But it's like, it's that theory, it's the idea of every vote counts, right? Because every vote does count. The more we vote, the more we have our voice out there, the more other people will vote and have their voice out there. And it's kind of a ripple effect because, you know, I have family members that they won't vote just because they think that their voice doesn't matter. But the reality is a snowball creates a avalanche, right? And that avalanche is what creates noise and, you know, so on and so forth. But having that idea of, you know, I don't like this person and I'd prefer somebody else in, I'm going to go ahead and shoot my shot and go ahead and do it. That's the whole idea from it.
Great point. I absolutely agree with that. This was my first time voting in an election. And even though Gavin Newsom was telling his supporters to only vote no and leave out the second question blank, right? Because how the ballot worked was they had the first question, should Gavin Newsom be recalled, yes or no? And the second question was, if Gavin Newsom is recalled, who are his replacement candidates? And then Kevin Paffrath, the YouTuber that we were talking about, is among one of the, over 20 candidates that were officially on the ballot. And so like you, Matt, I voted no, right, to not recall Gavin Newsom, but I also voted an alternative candidate just in case anything happens. You never know, of that 0.01% chance. And I voted for Kevin Paffrath. And I, like you said, I hate it when people say, oh, my vote doesn't matter. What's one vote going to do? Who cares about what other people, you know what I mean? Just focus on yourself and just focus on expressing your opinion. It's kind of like, I think voting is like a personal choice. It's as much as you do it for yourself, it's also for the other people. So you shouldn't be thinking about, you know, like other people and how, if they're, you know, you understand what I'm saying here, right? Like
100%, dude. Like,
Yeah,
I think real quick, Jenish. So I think the biggest point of voting, like on my personal thing, because I'm a person like everything that happens outside of what I can control, I don't really bother dealing with. But the things that I can control, like I love like trying to proliferate that, right? And like, you know, for example, like my inner circle, like you guys are in my inner circle, or like my family's in my inner circle. And so I try to be a leader, right? So that's my biggest thing. And by being a leader, you got to lead by example. And so by saying like, I'm going to go ahead and vote, and even though it may not happen, but maybe these guys will go ahead and vote, you know, as well. And maybe their vote will proliferate into their friend group, and it'll kind of create this ripple effect inside each other's, you know, inner circles. And so I think that's my personal opinion on why I do go ahead and vote, and I go ahead and I go ahead and, you know, be active in these political manners, is because not necessarily what I think is going to happen, but what I think should happen so everybody can start participating. Does that make sense? Am I articulating that well, or?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I think, like I said before, like every vote, like you said that, right? Every vote counts, every vote matters, and we should just be cognizant of that. And we shouldn't just vote in every 4 years. This is like, you know, we just voted last year, right? For those of you who voted last year. So you have to like constantly be involved, and that's how things change. Like change doesn't come overnight. It comes through the active participation of guys like you and me, who, you know, constantly are active in the political system. But just really quickly on the recall, in my opinion, the stuff that pissed me off about Gavin Newsom was like the hypocrisy of some of his actions during the pandemic. So if you guys remember, there's this restaurant, it's called the French Laundry restaurant, I think, and he had a dinner with like a dozen people, and he wasn't wearing a mask. And that was during the height of the pandemic, when everybody was told to actively wear a mask all the time, right? And that's what pissed me off, that he had the guts to have this dinner. I think there were some lobbyists there, and he didn't have his mask on, right? And he was telling other people to wear the mask on. And then he sent his kids to private school during the pandemic, while everybody else, the public school kids, right, were doing virtual Zoom, and the private school kids got to go in person because they figured out a way to, you know, manage it safely and still do in-person classes. But my point is that his personal hypocrisy was my biggest contention with him about the pandemic policies. Like you were saying, Jenish, like no one was able to figure out an effective way. The Republican supporters might say Ron DeSantis in Florida figured out a way of like, he's just going complete independence, freedom, like no mask, nothing, go all in, like pandemic, it's fine, it's over. And people might argue that he did a good job. I don't think there's anybody that did an effective job. And it's sad because nobody rose to the occasion in the big states. Not Andrew Cuomo, not Gavin Newsom, not Ron DeSantis. Nobody did a good job. And to say that one did a better job over the other, you can maybe argue that, but it wouldn't be fair to say that some like one governor was able to like, oh my God, he was amazing at handling it. I don't
It's
think
also preference, right? Like whatever like the individual prefers and whatever the individual prefers the outcome be. But I think it all just kind of bears down to, you know, the whole leadership aspect that you were talking about, and how you need to lead by example in order to run the most powerful state in the United States of America. And, you know, Gavin Newsom didn't do that. And so that's where we are. Next year we'll vote again and hopefully he's out. But yeah.
well, the great thing is that now he's gonna be on his, you know, because now he knows what it's like to face a recall election. So he cannot afford to have any more like, you know, scandals or make those bad decisions. Like you said, I think he's going to lead by example now. And he has been, you're right, ever since the recall election occurred. Like he gave those direct stimulus checks, included that in the state budget, because I mean, if you give direct checks to Americans, they're going to vote for you. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. But I don't think he's going anywhere. I think he's going to get reelected next year. I don't think anybody else has a chance next year. Gavin Newsom, the state is doing economically, it's doing very good. No matter what people, a lot of like non-Californians always like this comment, oh, California is doing so bad. Everyone's leaving. No one's leaving California. We've got the best weather. We've got the best schools. We've got the best sports teams. We've got everything. There's like California is literally heaven on earth. No one's leaving the state. Yes, the homeless problem is bad, but like it's just been bad for such a long time. And I guess we're just used to it now, right? I mean,
Whoa, bro. Come on, man. Since March 2020, have you been to Venice, bro?
Absolutely, 100% understand. The homeless problem is extremely bad. I get it. I live in
but it's proliferated a lot more since the pandemic. Like,
it's exacerbated. I'm exactly my point. But my point is like, overall, is California doing terribly? No, we're doing pretty great. But we've got one major issue that we have to deal with, homelessness. We have to deal with, but nobody has the answers. Like, it's just like, you can't just blame it all on Gavin Newsom. Like, yes, you're right. He is the leader. So he has a moral responsibility to genuinely seek to address it. But can he be scapegoated for the entire problem? I don't think that's true.
Like Garcetti has to do with it as well, right? Like, I don't think Garcetti's doing a very good job.
100%. Yeah, well, Garcetti's off to India to become an ambassador to India. And so he's like, Garcetti is like, I mean, yeah, he didn't do a good job in my opinion. So I think he's being nominated by Joe Biden to be the United States ambassador to India now. So I think he's going to be leaving soon. So